Bobcat fans, it's time once again for another Bobcat Coaches Corner. To my left, Joe Samprone, so that must mean it's time to talk a little cross country. Been a little while since we talked, Coach. How you been?
Been fine. I've been fine. Been busy at practice. We haven't had much in the way of, we took last week off from having a meet, but been very busy getting ready for our conference, which is coming up in about 3 weeks.
Okay. Haven't talked to you since actually the trip up there to Boston. Tell me a little bit about that, and how did it go? I know you saw some sights and it made a nice weekend out of it.
Yeah, we did a lot of things. We did a little touring around. We visited the New England Aquarium, and we ran a race. The race results weren't, they were okay. They weren't our finest. We ran very well the week before, the men over at Macon and the women over in Aiken. But then when we got to Boston, it was sort of the fourth week in a row of a race, and it was asking a little bit too much. But we tried to plan our season so it was heavily front-loaded. And as I mentioned a moment ago, we took last week off. We've got a race this week, then we've got next week off, and then our conference. So we got 2 weeks off in the next 4. And we planned it, loaded at the front, take a little time off at the back end. They ran very well. Believe it or not, and I'm from Boston, even though it was only 70 degrees, it felt more hot and humid than it did at our home meet when it was 100 degrees here in Milledgeville. And all the runners sort of felt the effect of that. You were just perspiring, just standing there. It was just really, the air was very heavy and very humid. So that sort of slowed them down a little bit as well.
Probably all the rains they've had in the Northeast.
They had, yeah.
Saturating things, huh?
Yes, and we actually had rain that morning, which softened the course, which made it a little bit more difficult to run. But no excuses. They ran well. They just, coming off of how well they ran the week before, they didn't match up to that. But they ran well. But again, a lot of that is the way I did the schedule. They were a little bit tired after 4 weeks in a row. And we had a rough beginning of practice after that, but now we're back in the full swing of things, and practices have been just excellent the past few days. So everything's moving in the direction we wanted to at this time in the season.
Excellent. Sounds good. How about, talk to me about the trips in general. I know this is something that you've done with your program in the past. You've made moves out to Arizona, and you've done California and New Hampshire. Why?
Well, when I first came into the program as the coach on cross country, I had talked with the athletic director then, Stan Aldridge, and said, we're a liberal arts institution. I've got a small sized team, so travel is more affordable for a smaller group than it would be, say, for the baseball team. And I'd like to do a little bit of that. And he was very encouraging and said, that's part of a liberal arts education, try and work something in educational. My plan when we went to Boston was to take them down to the Plymouth Plantation and see a little history, but the forecast was for rain the whole time we were there. And although it only sprinkled a few times over the 3 days we were there, I decided at the end to take them indoors, so we did the New England Aquarium instead of the Plymouth Plantation. But in our California trip, we went to the Getty Center, and we went to art museums and stuff. So we try to mix in a little travel, see a different place, and also we try to work in a little educational experience while we're there, and also a race. So we get all three in. And I was looking at the board behind you with some of my former runners. Some of those kids made an awful lot of trips, and they really, I think, benefit, and at least they've told me the experience was just a wonderful thing as part of their college education. So as long as we can tie it in with some educational things and some experience things they're not going to get in the classroom, and if it's a good race to go to. And our current athletic director, Wendell, said just keep it going, and so we're going to continue to do that.
Yeah, it seems to be unique just to your sport, your program in particular. Even the other programs in the region, I haven't seen any lengthy trips. You aren't going to California and seeing conference teams out there. You're racing against new faces and all that sort of thing. It's a unique aspect to your program, and I got to think it's a sense of rewarding and that kind of thing for people that put in their time, their 4 years or what have you with your program. They get to go to some special places.
It's a great motivator for training over the summer. And unlike the other sports, we really start at the beginning. I guess us and soccer are the early sports, but if cross-country runners don't run over the summer and put in the miles, it's going to take them the entire fall to get in shape to be competitive. So when you hang out a trip and say the second week we're going to California, but it's going to be, you got to come in shape and our best runners basically get to go, then that's a motivator for people to get up early in the morning in the summer, get out and train so that when they come in August, they're ready to go. So it's worked very well for us as a motivator. And the trips are a lot of work to pull together because we do try to keep them, within, I mean, we have a small budget, so we can't just go and just book things at the last minute. There's a lot of shopping that goes into getting plane tickets and hotel reservations and all that stuff to try to keep the cost down. But it works with motivating the runners to keep in shape over the summer.
Sure. Well, and talking about results as well, because folks will be interested in that with the Boston trip. Looking at the women's side, it seems like you know what you're going to get out of Allison Loans. We talk about her each week on this program. Let's look at the rest of them. You're getting some good times out of a freshman and Rebecca Shane.
Yes, we are.
She's responding well to her first year.
Yes.
And then it looks like Victoria Dobson has really started.
Victoria Dobson's really starting to move up, and she's right now. At practice, I could say that she puts in an excellent practice every day. In the last 3 races, she's put in excellent results. We've always counted on Victoria. She came in a little slow at the beginning of the season, but we knew that the potential was there and that Vic would eventually just move right up in the ranks. Right now, I have one of those wonderful problems that a coach loves to have. I don't know who my 4th or 5th runner is because I've got a good 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. We're very deep on the women's team. Allison Loans is just out there by herself right now, and even in practice, she just finishes well out there. It's hard to slow her down. We're trying to slow her down a little bit and get an easier first mile pace to allow for a better second and third mile run. So, but Allison's out there, but Vic is running real well. Ashton's running great. Carissa's running well. Rebecca's running well. Katie Tinka, I think, who's a freshman, she came in injured and she started at just about base of 0, and she's now working her way into very competitive form. So we're looking forward to watching how she performs in Augusta in anticipation of hoping that she'll be right there for us at conference. So we've got a whole bunch of good runners on the women's team.
And the guy squad maybe not as deep, but you've got a good pack leading you out in front with Dan Horseman, Tyler Maddox, and Colin Conroy. Those are names we've mentioned before. It looked like Rob Manning had a pretty good go.
Rob had a pretty good go in Boston. Rob is another one of those folks that came in a little slow at the beginning of the season. He's just working his way into form right now. So we have great expectations for Rob's performance, both at Augusta and going forward to conference. The men's team's a little banged up. I can say the women's team right now is healthy. They're the top 8 or 9 of the 100% healthy right now, and I hope that continues for the next couple of races. But on the men's team, Dan's got a little bit of a problem with his foot, and Philip Lasky had an accident, broke his jaw. So that took him out for a week of training. So he's pushed back a little bit, and we have to move him forward a little bit now. But the men's team is not deep. I wish I could say on the men's team we were as deep as the women's team. Then an injury wouldn't be as important in terms of the ability of the team to continue to perform at a high level. But the men's team is just not that deep. Every morning when we have practice, I say to the guys, we're still looking for a 5th runner. Now, we've got 5 runners, we've got 6 runners, but I'd like to have 10 runners so that on any given day, we can make up, if something happens to someone during a race. But the men's team is just not as deep as the women's, and right now it's the men's team that has a couple of injuries that we're working through.
Gotcha, and that of course is probably a factor of why they're not as deep. Let's look forward to Augusta State this weekend. Are you taking an abbreviated roster, or does everybody get to go?
No, as a matter of fact, we're taking everybody, and I'm trying to work out. And the race is rather early in the morning. I was kind of hoping it would be like a 9:30 race. We could drive over in the morning because it's only about an hour and a half drive. but the women are off at 8 o'clock, and I believe the men are off at 8:30.
Okay.
So we're going over on Friday afternoon, and we're going to take everybody. So right now at head count this morning, I think we got about 22 runners that are going to be going over on Friday. And it's the last race for many, because once Augusta's over, then we're into conference and then regionals, and then you have a limited roster imposed by the conference of 7 and by the NCAA of 7. And at that point, you really do pare down your roster and say, these are the people that are going to be going forward, and the rest of the people are just going to continue to train, but there are no more races. So this is a time, for example, trying to figure out who the top 7 are on the women's team.
Sure.
We're going to take a look. My guess is that we'll probably get to conference with 8 or 9 names in mind, and at the last minute, based on practice the week before, try to pick who the best 7 are. The top couple will fall out naturally, but when you get down to 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, then there's going to be, we're going to have to make a decision, because they are so deep in that part of our lineup that we're going to have to just decide at the last minute.
Sure, sure. Okay, well, stay tuned to gcbobcats.com for the results this upcoming weekend at Augusta State. For Joe Samprone, Al Weston for the Bobcat Coaches Corner.